Hey man, let me tell you something that's going to sting a little, but it might just save you. When it comes to dating, most men don't realize this one brutal truth. The moment a woman senses that you are emotionally invested more than she is, she subtly, silently, and sometimes even sweetly flips the switch. You go from being the man she admired to the man she needs to test. It's not because she's evil, it's because of how her psychology works. You were once the mystery, the prize, the energy she was chasing. But once she detects that your world starts revolving around her validation, you slip into the weaker position. You begin performing for her approval without even knowing it, chasing her, complimenting her, texting too much, adjusting your plans to please her. It's no longer about mutual connection, it becomes a power game. A game where your value depends on how much she approves of you today, this hour, this minute. And that's when you lose the frame. Women are extremely good at this. They don't always do it consciously, but their instincts are razor sharp. They test, they pull away. They create just enough doubt in your mind that you start scrambling. You send more texts, you try harder, you try to prove you're different. But here's what you don't see. Every time you lean in harder, you're failing the test. She doesn't want a man who bends to her moods. She wants a man whose emotional stability doesn't flinch, whose sense of value isn't up for negotiation. But when you start reacting to her mixed signals, her silence, her one-word replies, she knows she has you. And once a woman knows she has that level of control over your attention, it's game over. Not because she's cruel, but because she no longer respects you. And when respect dies, attraction doesn't just fade, it collapses. Most men end up in this trap because they confuse attention with affection. They think, if I show her I care, she'll feel secure and love me more. No man, that's what you want to be true. But in reality, when you give too much of yourself too early, when you make her the center of your emotional focus before she's earned it, you're giving her something to control. She doesn't feel closer to you, she feels powerful over you. And women don't fall in love with men they have power over. They fall in love with the man who is unshakable, who doesn't perform, who doesn't need her validation to feel like a man. When you step into that weaker position, she might not leave right away. In fact, she might even keep you around, enjoying the validation you now give her. But her attraction, her desire, gone. It left the moment you needed her more than she needed you. And this is where the mind games start to take over. You'll find yourself analyzing her texts, reading into every emoji, overthinking every silence. You'll go from being a man with a mission to a man on a leash. Every time she pulls away, you chase harder. Every time she gets cold, you try to warm her back up. But she's not looking for warmth, she's looking for strength. And in your desperation to please her, to prove your worth, you're doing the opposite of what works. She feels it too. She feels when you've handed her the reins. And the tragic part, the more you give, the less she values it. That's female nature. Not good, not bad, just real. Women aren't wired to love men who pedestalize them. They're drawn to men who center themselves, who protect their energy like a sacred fire, not something to be handed out hoping for approval. You want to know how women get men in the weaker position? They don't have to do much, they just create space. They delay replies, they give vague answers, they flirt with ambiguity. And your male brain, desperate for certainty, starts trying to fill in the gaps. That's when the chase begins. You're not chasing her anymore. You're chasing the version of her that gave you attention in the beginning. You're chasing a high she once gave you, but now withholds. And that's exactly how she traps you. By turning herself into a puzzle you desperately want to solve, she becomes your obsession. Not because she's doing anything extraordinary, but because you are giving her all your mental and emotional power. And the more you do that, the less of a man you feel like, which only makes you chase harder, trying to get back to that version of yourself that felt powerful when she liked you. And here's what makes it even worse. This validation trap doesn't just weaken your position, it begins to rewire your identity. You start thinking your worth is tied to how she sees you. You base your mood on her replies. You feel good when she's affectionate and terrible when she's distant. You wake up wondering what you need to say, do, or become to make her happy. Brother, let me tell you this. When a man starts editing himself for a woman's approval, he's already lost the battle. Not just the battle for her desire, but the war for his own masculinity. You weren't made to chase validation. You were made to build, to create, to conquer. But now, you're sitting there refreshing your messages, hoping she texts. You've gone from being the man she was drawn to being the man she controls with breadcrumbs, and it never starts with a big move. It's always subtle. Maybe she used to compliment you, but now she doesn't. Maybe she used to double text, but now it's silence. Maybe she used to call, but now she doesn't have time. What happens next is the worst part. You start performing, you send a clever meme, hoping she'll laugh. You remind her of that inside joke, hoping to spark something. You try to plan a surprise, hoping to win her excitement back. All of this feels innocent, even romantic, but beneath it all is one sickening truth. You're doing it because you're afraid of losing her, and that fear, that's what she senses. That's what makes her pull away even more. Because she doesn't want a man who fears loss. She wants a man who knows he is the loss. That if she fumbles you, it's her tragedy, not yours. Let me tell you something. Women respect more than anything. It's indifference backed by purpose. Not coldness, not arrogance, but a kind of calm detachment that says, I like you, but I don't need you. That vibe drives women crazy in the best way, because most men don't have it. Most men, once they like a girl, fold. They start acting different. They start sacrificing everything they were doing before just to hold on to her. But women don't want a man who holds on. They want a man they have to hold on to. They want a man who's moving through life with so much direction and intensity that her presence in his life is a blessing, not a requirement. When you communicate from that energy, she's chasing you before she even understands why. Because you represent something she can't quite predict, and that mystery is irresistible. But most guys throw that energy away the moment they get a little attention. They forget who they were before she entered the picture. They start abandoning their routines, skipping the gym, spending more time on their phone than on their mission, all for her. And she sees it. She sees you morphing into someone who needs her more than you need yourself, and she hates it. Not consciously, maybe, but deep in her emotional core, she loses that raw attraction. She starts testing you just to see if you'll break, and most of you do. You'll jump through hoops, cancel plans, write long messages, explaining yourself, all just to get back into her emotional good graces. But that's not how attraction works. That's how submission works. And the more you submit to her moods, the more you train her to lead while you become the follower. So what do? How do you break free from this trap once you realize you're in it? Simple. Stop reacting. Stop chasing. Stop talking just to fill the silence. Go back to your center. Pick up your purpose where you dropped it. Women fall in love with your energy before they fall in love with your words. They fall in love with your vibe, your aura, your emotional consistency. They fall in love with the way you make them feel, not by chasing them, but by living in such a way that they want to be part of your story. The moment you prioritize her validation over your path, you become forgettable. But the moment you stop needing her to see you, she starts wondering why she feels so drawn to you. Because you're no longer giving your power away, you're owning it. Here's where things flip. When you start to reclaim your frame, she notices. You're no longer texting the moment she replies. You're no longer explaining your silence or validating her random mood swings. You're back in your world. You're building again. You're working out again. You're connecting with your purpose again. And now she's uncomfortable. Not because she dislikes it, but because she senses the shift. She's no longer in control. She can feel your energy pulling away. And suddenly, the man she thought she had wrapped around her finger becomes the man she can't quite reach. That uneasiness in her stomach, that's attraction being reignited, because it's in the unknown where her desire wakes up. And when she doesn't know exactly how you feel, she starts needing to find out. The tragedy of most men is they think being open, vulnerable, and emotionally available is the key to winning her heart. But for women, that often signals the end of the chase. It gives them too much clarity, too much security, too much predictability. And women don't fall for predictable. They fall for energy that feels out of reach, yet emotionally magnetic. A man who is present, but not emotionally desperate. A man who listens, but doesn't overshare. A man who can enjoy her company without needing her to validate his existence. When you become that man, she's hooked in a way she can't explain to her friends. Because you give her the emotional rollercoaster women crave, without you ever having to change who you are. Now listen carefully. Every time you respond too quickly, Every time you explain yourself too deeply, every time you ask her what's wrong when she goes cold, you're teaching her that you'll chase her validation no matter what she does. You're reinforcing her power over your peace. And the more you reward her silence, her attitude, her games with attention, reassurance, or emotional effort, the more she pulls back. Not because she's cruel, but because she's wired to test. And these aren't tests you pass with logic. These are tests you pass by staying rooted in your masculinity, unbothered, grounded, unavailable to games. The man who passes these tests isn't reactive, he's sovereign, and sovereignty, that's the rarest trait a woman can find. Here's the paradox that destroys most men. The moment you try to prove you're worth her love, you prove the opposite. Love for women is not earned through effort, it's triggered through presence, through silence, through self-trust. The man who doesn't try too hard is the man she wants to try for. The man who doesn't explain his worth is the man she starts questioning herself over. Why? Because when you don't seek her validation, you activate her need to prove herself to you. And that shift is where obsession begins. She stops wondering how much you like her and starts wondering if you like her. She starts chasing crumbs of your attention the same way you used to chase hers. That's the reversal of power, and it's the beginning of her emotional investment. So the next time she pulls away, don't chase. The next time she tests you, don't react. The next time she goes cold, don't over-explain. Sit in that silence and let your energy speak. Let your nonchalance echo louder than words. Let her feel the emotional space she created, and let her fill it. Because a woman only respects the man who respects himself more than he respects her mood. If you don't guard your emotional state, she will play with it. Not because she's evil, but because she needs to know if you're strong. And if she finds out you're not, the attraction fades fast. But if she senses that your inner peace is something she can't shake, that your validation doesn't come from her but from within, you won't need to chase her ever again. She'll be chasing you. The truth is, most men are addicted to the reward loop of female approval. One compliment, one sweet gesture, one I miss you, and he's back under her spell. She pulls back just enough to make him insecure, then gives him a small drop of affection, just enough to keep him chasing. That's how women build psychological dominance. It's not about control with force, it's about control through rhythm, through tension, through emotional scarcity. When she becomes the source of your highs and lows, she becomes your drug. And like any addict, you start making decisions from a place of fear. Fear of losing her, fear of upsetting her, fear of being alone. And once she sees that fear, that's when your value in her eyes collapses. This is why men must learn the art of emotional detachment, not coldness, not indifference, but detachment. You can love her, you can care for her, but you must remain untouchable at your core. Your sense of worth, peace, and purpose must be so deeply rooted that her storms don't shake you. When she tests your silence with accusations, you don't flinch. When she tries to provoke jealousy, you don't compete. When she withdraws, you don't run after her. That kind of man becomes magnetic, not because he plays games, but because he's already full. And fullness is what every woman is unconsciously drawn to. They don't want a man who needs them. They want a man who's already enough without them. It's not about being toxic, it's about being sacred. You become sacred when your attention is scarce, when your validation is earned, when your boundaries are enforced. When your emotional world is not up for manipulation, women admire men who are hard to rattle, who don't overreact, who don't get baited into arguments or emotional ping pong, because those men are few. And the moment you start giving your energy to every small emotional spike she throws at you, you become predictable. And what is predictable? It's boring. And what is boring? It's unattractive. Keep that in mind. Safety is not the same as stagnancy. And the more you act like a man she can't push around, the more she starts craving your approval. Let her wonder where she stands. Let her sit in silence. Let her ask herself why you didn't respond right away. Let her scan her last few messages, wondering what she said wrong. Because that's when the power balance shifts. That's when she becomes emotionally involved. Women don't fall for men who constantly chase. They fall for men who make them feel something. Tension, mystery, longing, curiosity. When a woman's emotions are stirred, she attaches. And ironically, The less you give her in terms of verbal reassurance, the more she starts trying to earn your attention. That's the exact reversal that makes her obsessed, because she feels like she's working for something valuable. So if you want to stop chasing women's validation, here's your new rule: become the man who validates himself. Your life must be so rich with purpose, progress, and peace that her energy is a bonus, not a need. You don't chase her, you invite her. You don't explain yourself, you express yourself. You don't beg for clarity, you observe the patterns. And if the patterns aren't aligned with your values, you walk. No drama, no explanation, just silence. That silence will teach her more about you than any conversation ever could. Because when a man is willing to walk away from beauty, he becomes irresistibly powerful. And once she feels that power, she'll chase the very validation she once weaponized against you. There's a silent truth most men never realize. Women subconsciously test your center, not because they're evil or manipulative, but because they're wired to seek strength. When you're too reactive, too eager, too available, you signal weakness, that you need her to feel whole, and that need becomes a stench. A man who can't hold frame becomes a man who can't lead. And when a woman feels she's the emotional leader in the dynamic, her attraction starts to fade. The masculine must remain grounded while the feminine flows. When you reverse those roles, you reverse the polarity. And that's when she starts pulling away, not out of cruelty, but instinct. You no longer feel like the man she originally desired. The irony is that what most men think will make her fall deeper, constant compliments, sweet texts, reassuring her endlessly, is actually what dulls her desire. Not because kindness is bad, but because unearned intimacy is a trap. It turns the chase into charity. And no woman wants charity from a man she admires. She wants to earn it. She wants to feel chosen, not because you have no other option, but because you had many and still picked her. When she senses that you've poured all your validation into her before she's proven herself, she unconsciously thinks he doesn't know his worth. And the moment she doubts your worth, she questions her own choice. So what's the alternative? Become the prize. That's not just a phrase, it's a principle. Being the prize means you set the tempo of the interaction. You decide how much of yourself is revealed. You set boundaries around your time, energy, and emotional space. You do not explain your standards, you live them. And when a woman sees that you are not easily moved, that your validation is expensive, her behavior shifts. She becomes more feminine, more nurturing, more present, because now she's in the receptive mode. And that's where feminine energy thrives. Your emotional self-control becomes the container for her chaos, and in that container, she feels safe enough to surrender. But here's the key: don't fake it. Women have a radar for inauthentic confidence. You can't just pretend to be nonchalant while simmering with anxiety beneath. You must become the man who no longer needs her reaction to validate his reality. You must feel so internally rich that her presence is not a lifeline, it's a shared experience. That shift happens when you stop chasing women and start chasing mastery. When your day is filled with purpose, when your body is disciplined, when your soul is calm, women begin to orbit you without effort, because you've become the rare man who's centered. And that center is what makes you unforgettable. In the end, you must understand the game without becoming bitter about it. Women aren't evil for setting these traps. It's a test of leadership, of emotional resilience, of self-worth. The problem isn't her, it's your response. If you allow yourself to become the man begging for her affection, you lose her respect. But if you become the man who moves through life with quiet power, who speaks less but means more, who doesn't need but chooses, then you win. You win her attraction, you win your dignity, and you win a kind of peace that no woman can shake. So next time you feel the pull to over-explain, to chase, to prove, pause. Let her come to you. That's how you reverse the trap. That's how you reclaim your power.